He stopped her arrow mid-flight. Now sacred tradition demands she marry him. She didn't miss. Saralyn, high huntress of the Korthari tribes, hadn't missed a single target in over a decade. Birds mid-flight, thieves in the dark, charging beasts in the middle of stampedes. Even when blindfolded, with her bow turned upside down, she could strike the heart of a fruit hanging from a branch 100 yards away. So when her arrow, loosed with all the weight of divine wrath, stopped in midair, a hair's breadth from the jugular of a human intruder, her world tilted. Literally, she'd been standing atop the sunstone ledge 1/2 mile high overlooking the sacred valley of Tanare when she'd loosed the shot. The instant the arrow froze, held between two pale, bare fingers like a child catching a toy dart, a shockwave of spiritual dissonance surged through her. Her balance shifted, the world spun. The ledge crumbled beneath her feet like dry ash. She tumbled. Air screamed in her ears. She was falling, and then she wasn't. Saralyn blinked, heart pounding. She was suspended mid-air, mere feet from the jagged rocks of the canyon floor. A strange bluish haze holding her like invisible hands. Slowly she was lowered to the ground. She stood, swayed, gasped for air. Her bow was still clutched in one hand. Her quiver lay nearby. She didn't reach for another arrow, because he was standing there. The man, human, wearing no armor, no power suit, no visible protection, just a loose slate-gray tunic over lean muscles, wind-tousled dark hair, and an expression that was equal, parts confusion and awe. In one hand, still glowing faintly, was her arrow. That was impressive, he said, staring at the arrow like it might detonate. Saralyn's hand twitched toward her waist. Her blade was missing. I was aiming for your throat, she said coldly. I figured, he replied, smiling sheepishly. I guess that's one way to say hello. That was the exact moment when 5 things happened almost simultaneously. First, Saralyn's elite honor guard, the Shadowbinders, caught up and emerged from the trees, weapons drawn. Second, the ceremonial elders arrived, all 57 of them, robes flapping dramatically as they skidded into the scene like confused birds. Third, the golden altar of Thalvaran, complete with glowing runes and floating ember spirits, lit up in a sudden explosion of ancient prophecy magic. Fourth, the arrow in the man's hand began to hum. And fifth, the sky itself split open in a ribbon of searing white light as the sacred tradition of the binding word awoke after 5 centuries of silence. The elders froze. One of them, Elder Thera, shrieked, "He caught her arrow mid-flight! The prophecy! The binding rite!" "It is written," Saralyn groaned. Oh no, not that old superstition again. But it was too late. A holographic scroll unfurled in the air, blazing with ancient script. Whosoever catches the High Huntress's arrow before it draws blood shall be bound to her by soul and vow until death or prophecy's end. The human blinked. Wait, what? 3 hours later, the man, whose name was Elias Ward, was sitting cross-legged inside the Korthari council chamber, surrounded by furious warriors, confused spirit shamans, and one very irate huntress. His hands were bound with ceremonial ivy, which he had to admit smelled nice but was otherwise unnecessary. "Look," Elias said, "I didn't mean to catch the arrow. It just happened. Reflex." Elder Thara gasped. "You reflexively caught a soul-forged arrow of Thalvaran, mid-flight. Do you know what kind of power that implies?" "I work in robotics," Elias said. "Really good reflexes." Saralyn, sitting beside him, leaned forward. Her eyes burned brighter. "Then the twin moons of Korith. You are a trespasser," she hissed, "an off-worlder. And now I'm apparently bound to you by sacred law because you caught an arrow." "Technically," Elder Varn interjected, "he stopped at mid-flight. That's rarer. It was supposed to kill him." "Right," Elias said. "I got that. The tension was so thick it could be cut with a vibro knife. Except knives weren't allowed in the sacred chamber, which was why most warriors had brought war fans instead. Less effective, but more dramatic. "So what happens now?" Elias asked. There was a long, ominous silence, Then Elder Thara stood. As dictated by the laws of Vatar, the two must undergo the trials of bonding. If they succeed, the union shall be sanctified. If they fail— What happens if we fail? Elias asked, not liking the growing twinkle in the elder's eyes. You die, Sarah Lynn muttered. Charming.